From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
A swarm farmers can use, how these drones may change the world of crop scouting. Flooding creates an emergency in Kentucky. We'll look at where the rain may continue to fall. And cattle in Texas head for town.
We're just trying to reduce number, trying to reduce how many we're feeding because there's no grass and the hay we have is not going to last us through the winter.
How the heat and dry weather is shaping the nation's cattle herd right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Cattle producers in the Southern Plains are on a razor's edge this summer as relentless heat and worsening drought are forcing ranchers to make hard decisions. Ed Lavendera reports from the sale barn in Texas.
Summers are supposed to be quiet inside the Seguin Cattle Company auction barn in Texas. But manager Brian Linsman says the extreme heat and drought is forcing thousands of cattle ranchers to sell off their herds.
What's it been like being in the cattle business this summer?
Pretty much a roller coaster ride. I mean, it's been chaotic. It quit raining in October of last year, so I mean, it's just been desperate measures for people.
Cattle ranchers usually bring their herds to market in late fall, but the heat and lack of rain is making it financially impossible for many ranchers to keep sustaining the cows. That's why Linsman says almost twice as many farmers as usual are lining up here to sell off portions of their cattle herds. Federal forecasters say this is the second driest year around the Seguin area in the past 128 years. Priscilla McBee and her family have a small family operation of about 20 cattle.
You brought two cows and a calf.
And a calf.
Why'd you have to get rid of them?
We're just trying to reduce number, trying to reduce how many we're feeding because there's no grass and the hay we have is not going to last us through the winter.
She says her farm is running out of grass to keep the herd properly fed.
It's hard. Our fields are barren.
Marty Schwarzkopf has a herd of 70 cattle. He brought one to sell today. He says he also usually sells 4,000 to 6,000 bales of hay every year to cattle ranchers. But this year the ground is so dry, he's only done about 300.
And I feel for a lot of people. People, they've been doing this for years and years, and now they don't have anything to hold on to. They're having to let go.
We put these bales of hay out a couple of days ago, and they're already gone. And they're $100 a piece.
Wade Meyerhofer is a fourth-generation cattle rancher on this land. He says this ranch field should be covered in lush green grass a foot high.
Did you get emotional thinking about that possibility?
Yeah. You don't want to do it. You don't want to sell them.
This part of Texas usually gets 24 to 48 inches of rain a year. It's received just 4 inches so far this year. The pond Meyerhofer's cows usually drink from is supposed to be 7 feet deep. There's not even a drop of water left in it now.
I will sell them before they're skin and bones. I will sell them. I mean, if we can't maintain them, then we'll get rid of them.
Ed Lavendera reporting. And the last time cows went to town in these kinds of numbers was back in 2011. Michelle Rook joins us with a closer look at how this compares to that year.
Clinton, the latest drought monitor still shows around 70% of the U.S. is in some level of drought, and it's deepening in cattle country. However, producers and market analysts say this drought is much different than in the recent past. So while the impact on the cattle market is already being felt, it could intensify in the next few months. The cumulative effect of the drought over the last few years is finally coming to a head, especially for cattle producers, and it's intensified the last few weeks with the extreme heat and dryness. Producers are running out of pasture and forage supplies. Hay stocks are down 7% nationally, and hay is at record high prices. And that's much different than the drought a decade ago.
There's just no place really anywhere in the country that's got any excess hay supplies. And so I think that's going to limit what we can do in terms of sourcing hay. It's going to limit what we can do in terms of relocating some cows compared to that drought.
As a result, Peel says female liquidation recently escalated, pushing down cow prices. Year-to-date beef cow slaughter is up 14%, while inventory is down 2.4% and well off its high.
And from that 2018 peak, we are down about 6.3% on beef cows at this point in time.
Ann Peel says that liquidation will continue as there's no relief in sight in the latest 90-day outlook.
We'll probably lose another million beef cows this year, or potentially even a little bit more than that.
He says heifer slaughter is also up 4%, with inventory down 3.5% as more heifers are being placed in feedlots versus being kept for breeding, which is key as it indicates the lack of herd rebuilding. Peel adds that feeder supplies are down about 2.7% from 2021. So he thinks the market hole is coming sometime in the fourth quarter, and all these factors could potentially set up another cattle market similar to the 2013-2016 period.
A new drought monitor is out, and while overall it shows a slight improvement in places, it continues to intensify in others. Meteorologist Matt Yersovic joins us with a closer look. Matt?
That's right, Clinton. We've got to look at that drought monitor. And yeah, while still places in Texas and Oklahoma dealing with that extreme to exceptional drought, we've also seen some improvements, parts of the Corn Belt and upper Midwest. Also going to factor in more rain as we head over the next cycle of the drought monitor due to all of that flooding that happened over the last week. So we'll be continuing to keep an eye on that, but still very dry out in the west, parts of the San Joaquin Valley, Nevada, and even up into Utah as we continue to watch monsoon season there in the west. We've got more moisture over the next 10 days for parts of the west, including Southern California and parts of Nevada, also the Four Corners region as well. And then right through the middle of the country, expecting more rainfall. And heading through later on today, we could be looking at, again, that chance for some excessive rainfall and some flash flooding possible, especially in those areas highlighted in red, parts of the Appalachian Mountains down into northern Tennessee and eastern Kentucky, and then back in the west as well. Speaking of drought, James Tucker farms in southwest Missouri. He sent these two pictures in of his cornfields. The one on the left is from July 27th, 2012, and you can see how dry and yellow the corn is. The other is from July 27th, 2022. Crops look a bit better, but definitely not perfect. The latest drought monitor shows half of Missouri is in some level of drought. A year ago, it was 0%. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
All right, thanks, Matt. A surprise agreement between Senators Manchin and Schumer has a domestic spending package back on the table. The deal, labeled as the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, proposes billions in new spending focused on climate, health care, and energy programs. It's only partially paid for by a new 15% corporate minimum tax, IRS enforcement, and new taxes on carried interest. The White House says if enacted, it would be historic, while Senate GOP leaders react to the Build Back Better reboot.
This is the nonsense that Democrats are focused on. Not helping you put gas in your car, not helping you afford your groceries. They want to use the middle-class economic crisis they themselves created as an excuse to raise your taxes and ram through their Green New Deal nonsense.
I think that this is a very, very major step forward if we can get it done, and I believe we can.
Included in the proposal are several ag-focused items. According to ProFarmers' Jim Wiesmeyer, the bill, it sets aside $20 billion for climate-smart ag practices. There's another $5 billion in grants to help create fire-resilient forests and do tree planting, plus a sustainable aviation fuel tax credit worth $1.25 a gallon. Democrats hope to pass it through budget reconciliation next week. Grain markets continue to rally on Thursday, so how long will it last? Michelle Rook joins us next with analysis. And later, a drone swarm to help you scout fields. One Ohio State student is trying to perfect it. We'll show you how in the country.
Ag Day is brought to you by the End Zone by Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your End Zone fan control by July 31st and receive $200 off.
The Commerce Department putting out its second quarter data showing the U.S. economy shrank from April through June, contracting at just less than 1 percentage point. That's the second straight quarter of negative growth. Economic pressure now coming from two sides, rampant inflation and rising interest rates. On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve increased rates again, another 3/4 of a point. Now, market analysts say the Q2 data is a sign that the U.S. is entering a recession along with China and Europe.
So you've got the three largest economies in the world now in recession or heading towards recession. And the big question we don't know yet is how severe is it going to be?
He says the key is tied to Russia's control of energy supplies and the impact that has on global prices, which is a key driver of inflation. Michelle Rook joins us once again with a look at these latest economic numbers and what it means for our commodity markets going forward. Michelle?
Well, grains higher on Thursday. Joining us to visit about that with market analyst Darren Fry with Water Street Solutions. Grains pretty much ignoring the GDP number and really focusing in on the weather, and soybeans have assumed the leadership role. How much higher are we going to go with weather pushing the soybean market?
Well, this is really a critical time, as you know, for soybeans, and boy, this weather is really threatening. I don't know how long it's going to last, but if it lasts like the forecast says for the next 2 weeks, we'll see some blossom and pod abortion, and I think that's what's got the bean market concerned. So we still have upward momentum here, and we could go as high as $14.75, $15 before we see the chart really run into some major resistance. So for right now, the trend's your friend, and that's up.
Right, and we're getting help from the products. Soybean oil up strong on Thursday, and soybean meal still hitting new contract highs in the August.
Yeah, you know, the meal is really strong, and that's surprising to me. I've called the top in the meal, but I've had to reconsider that. And the way the chart momentum has been and the bar structure of these individual days, the last few days, it says we're going to new highs. So we'll see if that is indeed what happens. But boy, bean oil participated, and when meal is up with bean oil, beans are not going to go down. So they were led up by the products for sure.
So the corn market trying to follow beans ran up into a little chart resistance, but does corn continue to have to follow that bean market here?
I think so. You know, I think corn, there's still a story there from the standpoint of what's happened in Europe. And we know Brazil's competing well and getting a lot of corn exported out, but they'll sooner or later run out of that. And we know that we'll be the only game in town again. And I think this hot weather, while maybe a lot of the crop has gotten through pollination, grain fill is still a concern. And we need to get some good weather here to make sure we fill very deep and very heavy kernels.
And wheat just kind of tagged along, didn't it?
It really did. I mean, wheat looks like it had a good day, and then you look at a chart and it's like, oh my golly, it's still on the bottom. You know, corn is starting to make that move, but beans have been the leader, and I think corn does continue. Wheat is the weakest.
Okay, thanks for joining us. That is Darren Fry, Water Street Solutions. Our full analysis at agweb.com or AgDay.
For marketing strategy specific to your operation, contact Water Street Solutions at 866-249-2528 or online at www.waterstreet.org.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us, taking a look at our drought monitor once again. And Matt, obviously this, kind of goes backwards for us. We have seen some rain in some of these places that should show up soon.
Yeah, and this drought monitor, the data is taken Tuesday to Tuesday. So after Tuesday of this week, we had more rain in the Mid-South, so that'll be factored in next week. But we're expecting even more improvements as we head through the next 10 days. And over the next 10 days, we'll see more rain right through the middle part of the country, places like Oklahoma to Kansas and right through southern Missouri, even parts of Tennessee there. This is the area here that we've seen the drought expand. More rain has fallen to the north, helping a little bit of these drought conditions, but likely next week we'll see even more improvement. Meanwhile, staying dry in the west, but expecting more rain in the Four Corners, into parts of Utah and even Nevada, going to see some of that rain as we head through this upcoming week. So let's take a look at the precipitation as we head through the next couple of days. Notice where it is, right through the Mid-South here, almost right along the border between Kansas and Oklahoma, all the way from the Four Corners straight on through to parts of Tennessee and then working its way up into the Appalachian Mountains as well. So more rainfall expected, and we're going to see that over the next couple of days. But here's a look at the excessive rainfall for today. These are the areas here highlighted in red that really need to be watched for the chance for flash flooding, but also monsoon season in the west. We've seen a lot of heavier downpours out there, and it's extremely dry. So things to watch out that way, but also working right across Tennessee and up into the Appalachian Mountains as well. Johnson City, Tennessee, up into mountains of West Virginia, dealing with that chance of some of those heavier downpours and some flash flooding as well. Again, these are the areas that we've been talking about for the last couple of days for the heavy rain, and we're going to continue to see that because this front right here is working its way right across the center of the country. This low pulling up into the northeast, but keeping these couple of lows kind of dragging right on each other, right through the middle of the country, and that's where those heavier thunderstorms and some heavier pockets of rain will be as we head towards tomorrow afternoon and then into the evening. Meanwhile, temperatures staying hot down to the south, cooler up to the north, and that is going to be the big theme with the heat and humidity returning for next week, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Nashville, Tennessee, heavy rain and thunderstorms, a high near 87 degrees. Heading to Springfield, Colorado, heavy rain and thunderstorms, a high near 72. And then up to Taft, California, sunny and hot, a high near 102 degrees.
More rain and flooding could be on the way for parts of Tennessee, West Virginia, and Kentucky. Deadly rains, described as catastrophic, poured into Kentucky this week. Some areas getting up to 10 inches of rain in just hours. The water washing away homes, flooding schools, and pushing waterways over their banks. Governor Andy Beshear announcing a state of emergency for multiple counties Wednesday and Thursday, describing the situation as one of the worst and most devastating events in Kentucky's history. This week, torrential rains threaten flash flooding across 1,200 miles. Meteorologists say the danger is expected to linger into the weekend. Work continues to restart grain shipments this week from Ukraine. Now a warning, there may not be enough seafarers willing to sail those ships once loaded. ProFarmer reporting some 80 ships remain blocked in Ukraine, and most of the crew members have been evacuated. In order to get cargoes moving, new sailors need to be brought in, but the inherent dangers of the job is making it difficult. Meanwhile, in Turkey, a joint coordination center is now up and running.
It has become necessary to establish a sea corridor for the safe delivery of more than 25 million tons of grain, waiting in Ukrainian ports to the countries in need in a short period of time.
The shipping agreement is set to remain in place for at least 4 months. Up next, keeping the summer swarms away, unless it's a swarm of drones helping you scout crops. A look at new possibilities from Ohio next.
Registration is open for the 2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour. Join our team as we gain insight on the 2022 growing season in person or online. Visit profarmercroptour.com/register to select the stop nearest you.
Drones or UAVs are becoming more common on farms around the country. Now researchers are looking at ways to use multiple drones together in something called a swarm. They hope someday it may take over the job of scouting. The Ohio State's Drought Lab and researcher Jason Bubin explain.
My name is Jason Bubin. I'm a PhD candidate in Ohio State's Department of Computer Science and Engineering. In the summer of 2021, myself and other members of Ohio State's Drought Lab built and deployed a swarm of fully autonomous unmanned aerial vehicles. We tested our swarm at LaRue Farms in central Ohio by scouting soybeans for leaf defoliation. Defoliation describes the loss of leaf area leading to decreased crop productivity. Soybeans defoliate naturally over time, but can be defoliated prematurely by pests like the Japanese beetle, leading to decreased crop productivity. Detection of defoliation allows farmers to implement responsible variable rate pesticide application, but conventionally requires manual scouting. Today, we demonstrate an autonomous UAV swarm that can map crop yield and detect defoliation. Our swarm uses 2 edge machines, a laptop for UAV control, and a GPU-provisioned edge server for neural classification. It also requires networking hardware to ensure fast communication between UAVs and edge hardware. Our UAVs autonomously scout the crop field. That means that UAVs explore the field, taking paths of their own choosing. Our swarm uses reinforcement learning to autonomously sample the crop field. Sampling allows the swarm to cover a vast area, while our RL pathfinding algorithm minimizes accuracy loss from unexplored regions. At each waypoint, UAVs capture an image, which is sent to the edge to determine its defoliation percentage. Defoliation percentage, along with other metrics, when fed to our RL pathfinding algorithm, determine the UAV's next pathfinding decision. Once the mission concludes, we instantly return a map of predicted defoliation, allowing farmers to quickly inspect and treat problem areas. Preliminary analysis of our technique and prior work showed that we can return high accuracy defoliation maps with only 10% crop coverage.
And that's all of our time this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.